So service offering in cloud, it is the meaning is nothing but like what are the types of services the cloud providers are offering. Okay, so this is only applicable to public cloud. Okay, let's say you have selected AWS or you have selected Azure to host your applications or your servers, etc. Then you need to think about what are the services available in that cloud. So basically, it is categorized as three categories. First one is infrastructure as a service, second one is platform as a service, and third one is software as a service. So when you choose infrastructure as a service, so as the statement says, provides virtualized computing resources like servers, storage, and networking over the internet. So for example, let's say if you wanted to deploy your virtual machines, which is hosting your applications, for example, core banking application or web servers, etc. So one option is you can go with infrastructure as a service where Microsoft will give you the servers, virtual servers. On top of it, you have to install the operating system. Either you can install Windows Server or Linux, etc. And then you build your application. For example, you install IIS or you install Apache or any other core banking application, and then you give it to the user to access it. So in this case, you have to manage the OS level patching. You have to manage the security of this server, and you have to manage backup, disaster recovery, all those things you have to manage. The only thing you are not going to manage the underlying hardwares. So you're not able like hardware is completely managed by the cloud provider. Either it is Azure or it may be AWS. Okay, so this is the concept of using infrastructure as a service, where the service provider will give you the VMs or storage or networking, all those things, and you have to manage the remaining part. Except hardware, you have to manage most of the things in infrastructure as a service. So when you are moving or migrating to the cloud, I'm not talking about Citrix or Azure Virtual Desktop. In general, I'm talking about if you are moving to the cloud. So always you need to choose the model which is more convenient to you. So we'll talk about it later. So second one is platform as a service. So platform as a service, as the statement says, provides the platform allowing developer to build, test, and deploy application without managing underlying infrastructure. So it means that, for example, let's say I wanted to host my virtual machines. For example, let's say I wanted to host a web server, right? So typically, what is the procedure? So you'll go to the, let's say if it is in an on-premise, on your infrastructure, which is VMware or Hyper-V, you'll spin up a VM, install the related operating system, and then related to the web server you will install IIS or Apache, whatever it is, and then you will publish it over the either through your load balancer or public firewall, etc., to the end users, right? So at the end of the day, you have to manage your server, which is hosting your hardware, and then you have to manage your server operating system, and then the application, which is IIS or whatever it is, and then the load balancer, etc. So end of the day, you have to manage many things with respect to software as well as hardware. However, when it comes to platform as a service, as I told you, Microsoft will give a platform where you don't need to manage anything about the operating system, not the applications, not hardware, etc. So they will give a platform. You just deploy your code, or let's say if you wanted to use a file share, so you don't need to worry anything about the backend infrastructure doing all this storage configuration, etc. Or you don't need to worry anything about your backup restore. You don't need to worry anything about your disaster recovery pattern. So you just go and deploy your application on top of the platform Microsoft is giving. So this is called PaaS model. So here it is like some responsibility with the Microsoft and some responsibility with you. Okay, so here the responsibility what Microsoft is looking into the backend infrastructure, they will look into it, which includes hardware, which includes your operating system patching, which includes your disaster recovery, which includes your backup. All those things Microsoft will take care. Your work, you wanted to manage your application on top of it. For example, the simple example I can give you Azure Virtual Desktop. So in case of Azure Virtual Desktop, as you can see, the brokering, the database, the web layer, the gateway, everything is managed by Microsoft. What you manage only the session host. Same goes with Azure Premium File, where you're not going to manage anything. You're just, going to the portal and deploying the Azure Premium File and just managing the permissions, etc. So the backend infrastructure, think about the traditional file server setup. Like what are the complex things you get involved, right? Like you have to get the storage providers, devices, configure, RAID, all those things. On top of it, build up file server, then manage the permissions, then manage the backup, all those things, and on top of it, the DR, disaster recovery, etc. So here, everything will be offloaded to Microsoft. You just have to manage the top level applications, which I told. So similarly, Citrix DAS also will fall into the same category. So here again, the broker, the database, the web layer, the gateway layer, everything will be managed by Microsoft Citrix. Only you have to manage the VDS. So this is the very simple example of platform as a service. So where some part is managed by service provider, cloud provider, I mean, and some are managed by the Microsoft or the Citrix. Sorry, some are managed by the cloud provider and some are managed by customer. And the last one, which is software as a service. So software as a service delivers software application over the internet on a subscription basis. In this model, you don't have to do anything. Neither you need to manage your backend hardware or software or application, nothing. So you will just go to the Microsoft and will say that I'll go for the SaaS model for some applications. Then they will bill you on the subscription basis. The beautiful example for this is Microsoft Office 365. For example, Teams. You are not doing anything, right? In Teams, you are just going and installing the Teams, and then you are set. So you're not like you're not no need to manage anything backend from the Teams. Yeah, although there is some policies, etc. That is different thing, but most of the things, like I can say 99% of the things will be managed by Microsoft. For example, OneDrive, you are not doing anything, you're just going and dumping your files. So Microsoft will take care about everything related to backup, how it is hosted, how the access control, all those things Microsoft will take care. So similarly, if you think about other vendor like Google Workspace and Salesforce, so these are the example of SaaS. So now coming into the decision making. So which model I have to select? I have to select infra as a service or platform as a service or software as a service. So in general, not don't think it from the VDA perspective. In general, if you are migrating any of your on-premise application to cloud, always try to check whether you can go with the SaaS model. Okay, so because of this, you can get the maximum advantage of it. So if your application is not fitting software as a service, then try to put it in the platform as a service. And still, if it is not able to fit in the platform as a service, the final option you should choose your infrastructure as a service option. So, for example, the beautiful example for is let's say you are running Microsoft database SQL Server on-premise. So now you wanted to move that to the Azure cloud. So best option for the Azure SQL to use. Anyway, SQL doesn't support software as a service. Then you can use the platform as a service where you can get the there is something called managed instance SQL. So Microsoft will manage most of the things for you. So you don't need to worry about. You just manage your database on top of it. So this is the beautiful example to go with the platform as a service. So if platform as a service, for example, let's say you have some regulatory concern, governance control, which using platform as a service not feasible, then what you can do, you can go with the Microsoft IaaS, sorry, infrastructure as a IaaS, where you can build your VM Windows Server. On top of it, you install the SQL and then you build your database. However, this is not called as infra modernization. Why? Because you're doing the same thing whatever you were doing in on-premise, right? It's called lift and shift kind of thing. You can like we can say. So it is not called actually app modernization. App modernization means when you move from the traditional approach to the modern approach, the platform as a service approach. So the another example I can give you web services, right? In on-premise, you will build your VM. On top of it, you will build your web application, sorry, web servers, and then you will publish your websites. So instead of doing the same in Azure, like in Azure also you can do, like you can build your VM. On top of it, you install the IaaS, then you publish it, But the thing is, at the end of the day, you have to manage your server, you have to manage your web application, and you have to manage your, all the publishing method, whether it is through load balancer or some other thing, right? So you're not offloading any of the task here. However, instead of going with this approach, what you can do, host it as a platform as a service. In Microsoft Azure, there is a service called app, Microsoft web app. So you can go with the web app. So that will offload many of the things, and you are not really going to manage the servers or the backend thing, etc. So this is how you have to choose. This is how you have to plan. So now coming into Citrix virtual apps and desktop, how you can choose this offering when it comes to Citrix virtual and apps and desktop migration. So first option, you have a infra as a service, right? For example, in the Microsoft Azure, you can build your own controller, you can build your own storefront, build your own gateway, and publish it as it is. Whatever you are, published in the on-premise side, same like you can do that. However, at the end of the day, you have to manage your DDC, you have to manage your storefront, you have to manage your gateway, you have to manage your SQL Server database, backup, disaster recovery for all your controllers, etc. However, instead of that, if you go with the platform as a service, for example, let's say you want to use Citrix Cloud, you can offload many things. So you can offload your DDC, you can in fact offload all your access layer and control layer. You can only concentrate on your resource layer or hardware layer. So this is the concept of moving into Microsoft Azure cloud and how you have to plan, and you have to think on that perspective, on the availability perspective and the reliability perspective, instead of just making the same copy in the Azure cloud. I hope this is clear.